Welcome to the Convergence Podcast. I'm your host, Ashok Shivanan. You don't need to be technical. You can start with tasks that you already do, writing, planning, and analyzing, and adding AI as a partner to start. This is really about discipline and habits, not about the tool. On this show, we'll deconstruct the best practices, principles, and the underlying philosophies behind the most engaged product teams who ship the most successful products. This is what teams are made of. Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of Convergence.fm. Now, you might have seen the leaked email or memo from Shopify CEO Tobi Lütke. In the email, he lays out an AI mandate. Everyone at Shopify is expected to use AI or risk being left behind. This memo is making waves and it's polarizing folks about what an AI mandate means. Now, since some of you reached out asking to talk through it and how to maybe introduce some of the concepts of your company, I made an episode breaking down the memo, 6 key points that he mentions, and some actionable steps that you can use if you're thinking about furthering the AI adoption on your team or at your company. Subscribe to the podcast to get future episodes as soon as they're published. If you find this helpful, give the podcast a 5-star rating on your podcast app or hit that like button on YouTube. If you don't know Shopify powers millions of online stores, including for brands like Tesla, Red Bull, and Mattel, who sell Barbie and Hot Wheels. And they are one of the world's top e-commerce platforms. They hire over 8,000 people and are valued over $100 billion. I've personally got a soft spot for them. One of my side hustles, we use Shopify. They're also headquartered in Canada and Ottawa with a huge office in Toronto, where I am from. And so I'm lucky to have a number of friends who have worked there at some point. In the memo, he frames AI as a step function change, not just for the company, but for their customers, the merchants, and also the entire retail industry. And he uses it himself a lot and shares it publicly on various mediums like podcasts, weekly videos, and even at Shopify's internal conference that's called Summit. And during that talk last year, he originally positioned it as a call to tinker. And now he's upgraded what he thought was a suggestion to what seems more like a mandate. He's seen in that time his colleagues at Shopify use AI in a variety of ways. It's a thought partner, a deep researcher, a critic, a tutor, a pair programmer. Speaking of pair programming, incidentally, in our launch episode last year, we featured Shopify's Vice President of Engineering, Farhan Thawer, and he talked to us at length about how they use AI dating back to like 2023, including as a pair programmer.
I think no one is like not using Gen AI now, right? With the launch of ChatGPT and these tools. I think there's a few different ways to think about it. One is, what are all the things that we're building for our merchants, right? We want to make sure that we can save them time and they can, spend all their time building great products and building their community. And so right away, we had something called like product descriptions, which is making it easier for them to generate these descriptions that are SEO friendly and vibrant for buyers. We have a tool, Inbox, which is a way for our merchants to offer this to their buyers. So a buyer comes to the storefront and asks questions like, where's my order? Can I exchange this for red? Is there a discount? And an LLM could reply quickly. And depending on your workflow, you might want to read it first, or you might want to have it auto reply as a merchant. But again, it makes that workflow much easier. Tobi put out a cool video about Sidekick. It's kind of like your co-founder, and you can have it help you like run your business. So again, like you're not alone, right? And Sidekick is really like your person to help you kind of manage your business and do admin operations in Shopify via chat. So there's lots of these examples. And then for employees, right? GitHub Copilot. We're testing other tools from other companies as well to see, can we remove ill from people's work, right? We use AI summaries a lot in the company, where you might have a lot of text. You might want to just summarize it, or you might want to generate ideas. So there's all sorts of places that we're trying to take advantage of this. And I think it's still very, very early days. Like there's a lot of toil that's being reduced, but there's a lot more to come.
And coming back to the memo, the response has been surprisingly polarizing. Some are actually calling it risky for a CEO to make such a bold mandate. And others, likely myself included, see this as a decisive move and being very aligned with Shopify's culture, especially in the context of how powerful today's generative AI tools really are. Yes, it may drive some churn among some employees who don't adapt, but I think it's more likely to deepen engagement with their top talent and attract more folks who thrive in a culture like this one. He explicitly anchors the mandate in Shopify's values too, which I love. And the two that he talks about are be a constant learner and thrive on change. So this is a new territory for the business. It's a clear signal of where the company is continuing to head. I also think this sends a strong signal to Shopify's customers. If I'm a merchant deciding what e-commerce platform to use, this tells me that Shopify is going to stay ahead and innovate faster and not stagnate while my competition moves ahead using AI. I also think this is particularly awesome compared to maybe Google or Microsoft, who have also publicly stated things about AI. Because unlike Google Cloud and Microsoft Azure, Shopify doesn't sell AI infrastructure. They sell merchant tools that I believe will increasingly be powered by AI as a result of this. And I think that nuance makes this extra impressive from a CEO. Reminds me of things like when Steve Jobs, when he came back to Apple in 1997, he came in and slashed their massive product line just to 4 core products. And that risky move became a very foundational pivot that I believe was a huge part of Apple's renaissance and led to many of the products that we use today. Similarly, Jeff Bezos wrote a API mandate memo in 2002 at Amazon. He required all internal teams to expose their functionality through APIs, and this forced the shift in Amazon.com's architecture, making it a lot faster and more flexible, and ultimately laid the groundwork for Amazon Web Services. Let's get to the memo and talk about the 6 key points that he talks about, what I think they mean, and how you can apply them at your organization. Number 1, AI is a baseline skill. Using AI is no longer optional, and he says it pretty plainly. Folks who don't agree with that likely won't be able to move forward and thrive at Shopify. This may sound harsh without context, but remember, they've been public about their AI use for over 2 years. This isn't a day one decision. It's more like a year or 2 of adoption. And this push is to help bring along not the early adopters, but the late majority and laggards who, for whatever reason, still haven't adopted AI. If you're thinking about a similar mandate, remember that you've got to model the behavior first as a leader. So start small and with yourself, and then find in your organization who the tinkerers are, encourage them, enable them, and put them on stage across the rest of the organization to share what they learned. Last season, we had an episode with Derek Ferguson, who's the chief software officer at Fitch, and he shared how they're doing that across their large software company. So check that out. Mandate number 2, AI must be part of the GSD prototype phase. GSD, I'm pretty sure here, refers to get shit done, which is an internal motto that they used that drives action orientation mindset to be proactive, efficient, results driven, and so forth. And I mean, AI being used in prototyping is super obvious. We've talked about it in the show already. Product ideas that were previously communicated as either like a 6-page memo or a slide deck can now pretty easily be written into AI developed prototypes within a similar time and cost once you get up to speed. What's interesting here is that I think this is already part of Shopify's culture where they value learning over the asset. Going back to Farhan's episode, he talks about this at length in terms of how they think about architecture on the episode. So I can see this mandate dovetailing very well into how they already think and operate. And what I also see is the rate of learning that comes from AI prototypes. I know from use that it's naturally going to be a lot faster. And more importantly, what I love is the quality of feedback from using working software as a prototype is a lot richer compared to traditional methods and totally worth it if it's not going to cost a ton more. Here's some ways I think you can think about prototyping with AI. The first one is just rapid design iteration. AI can generate really lovely usable designs very quickly, and you can test that out first before applying a lot of horsepower with real humans against it. The second one is you can train AI on your customer data and run mock feedback loops before investing in the actual user testing. And you can go through the first few iterations using AI. Code generation, we talk about this at length. I think things like GitHub Copilot really make your teams more efficient. Another one is data analysis. I have input feedback, spreadsheets, qualitative feedback into a GPT, and it's surfaced insights that weren't obvious to me at first, I'll concede. Nike's innovation officer actually recently shared that they have an in-house model that lets athletes custom design shoes, and this takes prototyping from months and weeks to just hours. And this is especially useful if you're a company like Nike with decades worth of sneaker design data. I find this pretty cool as a sneakerhead. Number 3, AI usage will be evaluated in peer reviews and performance reviews. Now, this raised some eyebrows, and I can see how it sounds aggressive. But again, bear in mind that Shopify has got a super collaborative culture, and that's very important context. As Farhan shared on the show, it's super common for leaders like him to roll up their sleeves and problem solve with their directs, with their peers, including writing code together.
So one of the things I try to do here is scheduling like pairing hours. And so what'll happen is my admin will basically like just ping a different direct report every week and say, hey, Farhan's going to pair for an hour with someone on your team. Pick somebody, and then she will schedule an hour with that person, and then I will just pair with them on whatever they're working on. Sometimes it's a tech design. Sometimes it's, I paired with somebody, they were building developer tools, like it was a VS Code plugin. Like these are kind of really just a way for me to get to know a person, but also to like be in like an editor when we're talking and ask questions. And what I find is even if I don't know the language, like I was pairing with somebody, they're doing Lua. I had never done Lua, but it's interesting for both people because it's interesting for them to hear how I'm thinking about what they're working on. And it's interesting for me to watch them go through the developer workflow and see the entire end to end of trying to build something. And, sometimes you get something built in an hour, sometimes you don't get that far. But I think that's one way. Another way is because we want a technical leadership team, I do a lot of interviews with folks and we do coding in the interview, even all the way up to the VP level. And we encourage them to use Copilot, by the way, because it's part of today's world. It's kind of like saying, don't use Google, don't use Copilot. We're like, well, Google, you can use whatever you want because you can have the whole available to you. And I do a lot of those coding interviews with them. So they can see, one, it lets me code, but it also shows them that everyone is technical at the company and ensures that if they are somebody who has left technicality for getting into management because they were kind of running away from code, that might work well in some companies, but just doesn't work well here.
So my hunch is that AI-related feedback has already made its way into their peer reviews and performance evaluations, and creating an explicit question is just a forcing function to further drive adoption there. That's my guess anyway. And as we'll talk about in the next point, making AI usage visible through demos, internal updates, and other ways that Shopify shares data like wikis will further drive context for that peer feedback. So if your culture celebrates learning, this is something that could naturally fit into your review process. If you're not quite ready to tie performance to AI usage yet, you could start with even lightweight questions like, has this person used new tools to advance our mission? And initially, you can use that just to identify the folks to celebrate and then use it for reviews as you get more mature at it. Number 4, learning is self-directed, but share what you learned. They encourage self-led experimentation, but also expect their Shopify folk to share what they learn across their organization. When Farhan and I worked together at Extreme Labs, we used to have Friday demos, and he was the leader of the engineering team. And so on Friday afternoons, we'd grab some beers, snacks, and we'd demo our work for the week to our peers, successes and failures. And we'd get super valuable feedback early and on a consistent basis that we can make better products with. And it fosters this amazing culture of learning and vulnerability and peer feedback. In addition to creating a weekly demo ritual, here's a few other things that I thought of. The first one is highlighting AI wins in town halls, newsletters, and other things as the leader. The second is creating a Slack or a Teams channel for shared AI learnings, and make sure to contribute yourself. Another thing we did at Integral was we hosted hackathons for our integers. We brought in external judges, we heard meaningful prizes, and we put them against really complex problems. And it was another way for us to share our learning. Another thing that Tobi mentions in the memo is a series of tooling available to their employees like Copilot, Claude AI, and internal AI tools too. Now, if you're earlier on or don't have the budget or bandwidth at Shopify for all of those tools, start with like Teams licenses for ChatGPT or Claude or Copilot for your engineers as a starting point. The hard part here is that you're going to go talk to your infosec security folks, to your finance and procurement teams, and make it really easy for your value builders to build value with AI and not cause friction points in giving them permission to approve and expense these things. Point number 5, consider AI before requesting headcount or new resources. I love this forcing function. I think it's really going to drive leaders to think about how they can use AI and also downstream share that across the organization, like point number 4. If you're thinking about doing this, I think it's really important to explore the tools, learn how to get more done with the same team, and roll your sleeves up. Work alongside the folks that you think are using AI, learn from them, do a screen share, sit next to them if you're in person. I think this is also, as a leader, you're going to de-risk your own role in the future while empowering your team. The 6th and final point is everyone means everyone. He makes it clear that this includes the executive team and himself. And, I spend a lot of time convincing non-technical leaders, CEOs, and my peers to use AI. You don't need to be technical. You can start with tasks that you already do, writing, planning, and analyzing, and adding AI as a partner to start. This is really about discipline and habits, not about the tool. So figure out how to go deep. And if you want to do that, we put out a recent episode on interns and consultants that we'll link in the show notes. It's packed with a number of starter tips. Thank you so much for tuning in to this breakdown of Shopify's email memo about AI mandate from their CEO, Tobi. Hopefully you found it useful. We'll be back next week with another episode about fostering engaged teams who build delightful products, and we'll see you then. Thank you for joining me on the Convergence Podcast today. Subscribe to the Convergence Podcast on Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your content. If you're listening and found this helpful, please give us a 5-star review. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button and tell me what you think about what you heard today.